I never imagined my life would turn out this way. I never sat as a little girl dreaming I'd be raising 2 children alone. No one prays for that. No one chooses that. Yet somehow, here I am standing in the middle of a life I didn't plan, doing my best to keep everything from falling apart. I didn't sign up for this kind of strength. I didn't ask to carry this kind of weight. But every morning, I wake up and put one foot in front of the other, because these kids are watching me. Because even when I don't feel like enough, they look at me like I'm everything. There's a certain kind of quiet heartbreak in single motherhood. It's not always loud or visible. It's in the late night pacing when the bills outnumber the bank balance. It's in the cracked phone screen that you can't afford to fix. It's in the cold leftovers you eat standing up in the kitchen while trying to help one child with homework and calm another after a meltdown. It's in the moment you finally sit down, only to remember there's laundry still in the dryer and dishes in the sink. And sometimes, it's in that stillness, when it hits you hardest, the loneliness, the ache, the wondering. Is this it? Is this all I am now? A mother, a worker, a multitasking machine with no off button. A woman with tear-streaked cheeks and fake smiles. A woman who used to dream but now just survives. And yet, every morning I get up sometimes before the sun just to have 5 quiet minutes to myself. 5 minutes to breathe before the chaos begins. To sip coffee in silence. To pray if I can find the words. Sometimes the only prayer I have is a whisper. God, do you see me? Some days it feels like the heavens are silent, like I'm trying so hard to hold it all together, and no one, not even God, seems to notice. I scroll past pictures of happy families on social media, Christmas photos with matching pajamas, smiling couples holding hands at church, and I wonder, do I even belong here? I'm not the woman with a perfect past. I am not the woman who married her high school sweetheart and now raises kids in a peaceful home. I'm not the woman who has it all figured out. I come with baggage, a story, some chapters I'm not proud of, some choices I wish I could take back. And even though I know God is supposed to love me, I sometimes wonder if He really uses women like me. Women who fell, women who left, women who didn't always get it right. So, no, I didn't feel qualified, I still don't. And yet, one Sunday, after service, a woman from church walked up to me. She smiled a real, kind smile and said, "We're starting a small group for single moms. I think you'd be great to help lead it." I laughed before I could stop myself. Me, lead. I thought she must have gotten the wrong person. I barely made it to church that day. My youngest threw a tantrum in the parking lot. I hadn't even read my Bible that week. And now someone thought I could lead. I started to decline. The excuses were ready. I don't have time. I'm not the right person. You should ask someone who's more together. But before I could say it, she put her hand on mine and said something I'll never forget. You don't need to have it all together to be used. You just need to be real and willing. I went home and cried. I didn't even know why I was crying at first. Maybe it was the shock of being seen, of someone looking past my mess and still seeing something worth offering. Maybe it was the weight of responsibility mixed with a fragile hope that maybe God still had something for me to do. I sat in my room that night, Bible open in my lap, staring at pages I couldn't bring myself to read. I was exhausted, confused. 1,000 doubts circled my mind. Who am I to lead anyone? What if I mess it up? What if I'm still too broken? But then, as I sat in that quiet space, I remembered something. I remembered Moses, how he stuttered, how he argued with God about being I remembered Ruth gathering scraps in the field after losing everything. I remembered the Samaritan woman, 5 failed relationships, and still Jesus met her at the well with kindness and truth. And I realized something that shifted everything. God has never waited for people to be ready. He just asks them to be willing. So I whispered it. I barely believed it, but I said it anyway. Yes, Lord. If you can use someone like me, I'm willing. That first small group meeting, I was terrified. I didn't know what to say. My hands shook as I poured coffee and welcomed the other moms. I expected them to be polished, strong, full of answers, but what I saw instead were women just like me, tired, worn out, aching for a safe place to land. And when it was time to share, I took a deep breath and decided to tell the truth. I told them I had cried in the grocery store when my card declined. I told them I had laid on the floor at night asking God why He left me here to raise these kids alone. I told them I felt invisible, like my life was happening behind a fogged up window no one could see through. I expected silence, maybe judgment, but instead I saw tears, nods, quiet, affirmations, and then, one by one, the words came. Me too. I've felt that. I thought I was the only one, and that's when I realized this was ministry. Not the kind with microphones and conference stages, but the kind that happens when one broken woman dares to speak so another doesn't feel alone. That's what God was doing. Not just in me, but through me. He was taking my tears and turning them into bridges. He was turning my pain into purpose. I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel qualified, but I showed up. Week after week, I kept showing up, sometimes tired, sometimes late, sometimes still carrying burdens I hadn't figured out how to let go of. But I came, and God met me there. In whispered prayers, in late-night text messages filled with scripture, in moments where I held someone else's baby while she cried into my shoulder, in conversations around tables with lukewarm coffee and sacred honesty. And somewhere in that sacred mess, God whispered something I didn't expect. This is what I made you for. Not because you're perfect, but because you're mine. That truth unraveled something in me. For so long, I thought I had to be put together to be used, that I needed to have all the answers, that I had to fix my life before I could speak into someone else's. But God showed me something different. He showed me that He uses tired hands, that He speaks through trembling voices, that He ministers through mascara-streaked cheeks and weary eyes. Because God doesn't need perfection. He just needs permission. Somewhere along the way, I stopped waiting to feel qualified. I realized that if I waited until I had all the answers, I would never move. If I waited until I wasn't tired anymore, I'd never stand. And if I waited until I was whole and unscarred, I would never speak. So instead, I made peace with this truth. I am healing and leading at the same time. I am comforting others while still learning how to comfort myself. And somehow, God is in all of it. There's a kind of strength that comes only from surrender. Not the kind where you wave the white flag and walk away, but the kind where you kneel, empty-handed, and whisper, God, I can't do this without you. That's what most of my mornings look like. Before the sun comes up, before the lunch boxes and traffic and work deadlines, I sit in the quiet, not because I'm disciplined, but because I'm desperate. I don't need a perfect devotional. I need a lifeline. I need God to remind me that He sees me, that He's still with me, that I'm not just raising these kids, I'm raising a legacy. I still have hard days, days when the house is too loud and the bills are too many, days when I hear from my ex and the old wounds rise again like they never heal, days when my heart aches for partnership, for someone to help me carry the weight, to laugh with, to dream with. On those days, the loneliness presses in close. I feel it in the grocery store when I pass families shopping together. I feel it when I'm buckling the kids into the car, looking over at the empty passenger seat. I feel it in church, during those moments when couples stand hand in hand, praying over their children. But God meets me even there. He doesn't roll His eyes at my loneliness. He doesn't shame me for wanting more. He simply draws near. He reminds me that He is not just my provider, He is my partner, my helper, my defender. He sees what I do behind the scenes. He sees the tears I cry into my pillow. He sees the nights I stay up late filling out forms and signing permission slips and folding laundry. And in His presence, I am reminded, I am not doing this alone. There is a beautiful paradox in single motherhood. It's both the hardest thing I've ever done and the most sacred, because in the middle of the chaos, God is raising me too. Every challenge grows my faith. Every stretch strengthens my soul. Every mess becomes a moment where grace shows up. I used to think I was just surviving this season, but now I realize I'm becoming in this season, becoming braver, softer, stronger, wiser. Not in spite of the struggle, but because of it. And I've started to see how my story is impacting others, not because I've written a book or stood on a stage, but because I show up. Because I answer text messages at midnight, because I remember birthdays, because I look into another single mother's eyes and say, I know, I've been there. There's a power in that kind of honesty. It breaks chains, it opens hearts, It reminds the weary that they are not alone. Our little group of single moms has grown. Some come with fresh heartbreak. Some come with children in tow. Some come guarded, unsure if they can trust another room of women. But over time, we laugh together. We cry together. We worship together. We share stories of God's faithfulness, even in the mess. And one by one, we realize we're not just a support group. We're a sisterhood. There is something sacred about women coming together in their brokenness and finding beauty there. No pretense. No performance. Just honesty and hope. And through it all, I've learned that ministry doesn't start with a microphone. It starts with a yes. A yes in the middle of the mess. A yes in the middle of fear. A yes when everything in you says, I'm not ready. Because God doesn't need a cleaned up version of you. He needs your surrender. That truth has carried me through some of my darkest moments. When the bank account dipped lower than I thought possible. When my car broke down on the way to pick up my child. When I found myself crying in the shower so my kids wouldn't hear me. In those moments, it wasn't a sermon or a Bible verse that kept me going. It was the presence of God, gentle, steady, near. It was the whisper of His Spirit saying, I'm still here. Keep going. I've stopped trying to pretend I'm strong all the time. Some days, strength looks like asking for help. Some days, it's letting someone bring me a meal. Some days, it's canceling plans and resting without guilt. I used to think I had to do it all to prove I was enough. But now I know I already am. Not because I'm Superwoman, but because I'm a daughter of the King. And He never asked me to carry the world. He just asked me to walk with Him. I've also learned to celebrate the small victories. Getting the kids to school on time, making dinner from scratch, reading a bedtime story without falling asleep halfway through, paying off a bill, saying no when I used to say yes out of guilt, laughing out loud, real belly-deep laughter. These aren't small things. They're sacred. They're evidence that I'm healing, that I'm growing, that I'm more than just a single mom. I'm a woman being shaped by grace, and grace, I've found, is the thread that runs through all of this. Not the cheap kind that excuses everything, but the kind that empowers you to keep going when everything in you wants to quit. The kind that meets you in the pickup line, in the doctor's office, in the messy house, in the quiet car ride after drop. The kind that doesn't scold you for being tired, but holds you in your weariness. The kind that whispers, you're doing better than you think. So I keep showing up, not because I have to prove anything, not because I'm fearless, but because I've learned to trust the one who called me. And even when I feel invisible to the world, I know I'm visible to Him. He sees the nights I rock a sick child with weary arms. He sees the way I speak life over my kids, even when I feel empty inside. He sees the way I choose forgiveness over bitterness, love over resentment, hope over despair. And if there's one thing I want every single mother to know, it's this: you are not alone. You are not disqualified. You are not forgotten. You are seen, chosen, called. Not in spite of your story, but because of it. You carry a strength that the world doesn't understand, and a grace that heaven but you are, because God called you, and He equips those He called. Not with perfection, but with presence. Not with performance, but with purpose. So, take a deep breath, sister. You're doing holy work. One bedtime story at a time, one whispered prayer at a time, one trembling yes at a time. And you are not just enough. You are anointed. There comes a moment in your journey when you stop waiting to be rescued and begin to realize you were never forsaken to begin with. God was always there. In the chaos, in the heartache, in the quiet. Even when I didn't feel Him, even when I doubted His presence, He never left. He watched me weep on the bathroom floor. He saw me clutching the steering wheel, sobbing between errands. He stood beside me when I walked into school meetings, family events, and church services alone. He was always there waiting for me to see Him, not as distant deity, but as the loving Father who never took His eyes off His daughter. That realization has changed me. It hasn't made life easier, but it's made it more sacred. I no longer live like I'm forgotten. I walk like I'm accompanied. I mother like I'm empowered. I lead like I'm covered, because I've seen firsthand what God can do with a woman who has nothing left but a yes. I've seen how He fills the gaps, how He provides just enough strength, just enough grace, just enough peace to get through the day. Sometimes, not in abundance, but always in sufficiency. I used to crave overflow. Now I've learned to cherish daily bread. There's a kind of beauty in becoming the very woman you once needed. I used to wish someone would show up for me, to help me, remind me I'm not crazy or broken or too much. Now I find myself being that woman for others. It's not because I've arrived. It's because I've surrendered. I don't have the answers. I'm still learning. But I've decided to turn my survival into service, my story into strength, my pain into purpose. Because if one woman feels seen, because I told the truth about my journey, it's worth it. Every scar, every late night, every trembling step forward. Some days I still feel the ache. When my child asks why daddy doesn't come around, when I get another invitation for couples events, when I long for someone to celebrate the wins with me, someone to say, I see you, you're doing great. But in those moments, I've learned to let God's voice be louder than my ache. He says, I see you, I'm proud of you, you are not alone. And that's not just poetic language, it's a lifeline. It's what keeps me grounded when the loneliness tries to lie. It's what lifts my chin when the shame tries to settle in again. I've had to learn to forgive not just others, but myself. I carried guilt like a second skin. Guilt for not giving my children the life I imagined. Guilt for the divorce, for the arguments, for the nights I snapped at them out of exhaustion, for the frozen pizzas and missed field trips. But God didn't invite me into a life of guilt. He invited me into grace. And grace says, yes, you missed it, but you can still show up now. Grace says, yes, you broke, but you're not beyond repair. Grace says, you're not raising perfect kids, you're raising loved ones. And that's enough. One night, after a long day of work and errands and spilled juice and sibling fights, I tucked my children into bed and sat beside them longer than usual. My youngest grabbed my hand and whispered, Mommy, you're my favorite person. I felt the lump rise in my throat. Not because I thought I deserved that love, but because I hadn't realized I was still someone's safe place. In all my imperfections, in all my missteps, I was still someone's home. And in that moment, I heard the Father's voice echo in my heart, and you are mine. That's the truth that carries me now. I don't need to earn God's affection. I don't need to outrun my past. I, Dante, need to pretend I'm not tired or that I have it all together. I just need to keep showing up with my messy hair and my open heart, with my doubts and my hope, with my broken pieces and my willing spirit. Because God doesn't use perfect vessels. He uses surrendered ones. And somehow, as I continue to say yes, He keeps expanding the reach. That little single moms group, it turned into a circle of women who now pray for one another, care for one another's kids, bring groceries when times are tight. It's not a fancy ministry. There's no big stage or social media spotlight, but it's holy ground because God meets us there in the folding chairs and the coffee cups and the weary prayers. And in that sacred space, healing happens. Walls fall, chains break, faith rises. We don't pretend with each other. We don't quote or recite polished testimonies. We tell the truth. We cry when we need to. We laugh when we can. We pray even when we don't have the words. We are single mothers, yes, but we are also warriors, disciples, kingdom builders. We carry children in one arm and the word of God in the other. We rise before the sun and fight battles that no one sees. And we do it not for applause, but because we are called to raise the next generation with courage, called to lead when no one else steps up, called to speak life, even while our own hearts are still mending, called to embody grace, not perfection. And I know now without a doubt that God is writing something beautiful through us. He's building testimonies that will reach far beyond our lifetimes. Our kids will grow up not just knowing we worked hard, but knowing we trusted God. They'll remember the prayers whispered over them, the worship songs sung while we did the dishes, the peace that filled the house, even when the budget didn't. They'll know faith, not just from church, but from watching their mother walk it out daily. So, to the single mother who is reading this now, maybe with tears in your eyes, maybe with a tired heart, maybe wondering if you'll ever feel whole againly, speak this over you. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified. You are chosen. You are seen by the God who created you, the God who calls you, the God who is not disappointed in you but delighted with you. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not too far gone. You are His. And even now, He is inviting you to rise. Not when you feel ready, not when your life is in order, but right now, as you are, with your hair in a bun and your soul weary from carrying so much alone, right now, in the mess, in the quiet, in the chaos. He is calling your name. Say yes, not because you have the answers, not because you feel worthy, but because deep down, you know He's been with you all along. Let Him use your story. Let Him redeem your tears. Let Him take what the enemy meant to destroy you and turn it into the very thing that heals others. This is not the end of your story. It's only the beginning. You may not feel qualified, but you are called not just to survive, but to live. Not just to get by, but to shine. Not just to mother, but to lead. Not just to endure, but to overcome. You, dear sister, are the heart of a single mother, and that heart beats strong with the love of the one who made you. He's not done with you yet. He's just getting started.